topic. Yes, for sure. Actually, this is pretty interesting because I've taught this before, but things have changed a little bit in the past year and a half, right? In the past couple of years. So it was really actually kind of fun to do the research on this and look at some of the new information. I'm going to share some of that with you. We're going to start with some statistics. This is fascinating. Get ready to have your mind blown. Okay, you ready? You ready? Here we go. All right. First of all, last year, 2021, over 20 million people quit their jobs in the second half of 2021. Over 20 million people quit their jobs in the second half of 2021. And get this, of the 68.9 million total separations in 2021, 47.4 million were voluntary quits. They left voluntarily. Their job wasn't blown out of the water. Their job wasn't taken away. They weren't fired for any reason. You know, it didn't disappear. They just voluntarily left. February 1, this year, 2022, CNN jobs report showed annual wage growth of 5.7%, which is the fattest pay raise in years for the typical employee. See, I think this is important for you to hear because we have to think about what's going on in your workplace and what you're doing in this situation, how you're responding to the change that's going on, especially if you're having trouble filling positions. It's like, are you kind of keeping up here? Because that's the fattest pay raise in years for the typical employee. Interesting. Okay. College educated workers surveyed during the pandemic rated passion as their top priority in making a decision as to whether to take a job. Passion. What is even that? It means that people are passionate about their jobs. They feel like they have a purpose. They understand what's expected of them. They feel like they're being adequately compensated. They're doing something that they really, really enjoy. 20% of the people surveyed in this survey said that salary was most important in making a decision, and 13% said job security. And you can see this is very interesting because the number one thing was passion for the job. How about that? 45%. So let's think about what's going on in your workplace and how does this line up? Open jobs. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this was as of January 2022. This is the percentage of vacancies, the percentage of positions open in the industry sector. Okay, so in the education industry sector, 4.4% of all the jobs that are in that sector are currently unfilled. 6.3% for retail, 8.2% for healthcare, and 8.9% for hotels and restaurants. How about that? Construction jobs are also really high. There are a lot of construction jobs open now. They say it's not a work problem. They have work to do. They just can't get people to come and fill the positions. And we know, of course, restaurants, they say that people just aren't out there. There's just not people that want the jobs. Very interesting time for us, especially when we have organizations that need people so much, and we have people that are leaving because they can. We're seeing such a major shift. Here's a few things you should know. Many employees are offering better pay and benefits, including signing bonuses, than ever before. How about you? What are we doing here? People are leaving big cities because they find it's a safer place and a simpler lifestyle. They're leaving big cities, and probably you've seen this wherever you are. You know, in New York City, people are just leaving. In Chicago, people are leaving. In San Francisco, Los Angeles, people are just leaving. They are going for a simpler lifestyle. We've shifted our priorities. We now think about our families. We think about what's possible for us after being at home for a few months. So we want a simpler lifestyle. So there's a big shift in where we're actually living. Shift of power too, from employers to employees. See, it's almost been that employers are driving the car, so to speak, but now employees have an awful lot of control. And this is kind of controversial. If you read up on this, some people say employers are still in charge. It's just that they're having to alter their route. Other people say, no, employees are clearly driving. If you don't offer them something that they're passionate about with sufficient pay and benefits and flexibility, they're just not going to take that trip. So however you choose to look at it. Autonomy and flexibility are huge factors. If you don't provide flexibility, you're in trouble right now, because flexibility is really what it's all about. The biggest sector of people that have left jobs and not come back are parents with young children, because they want that flexibility. They've been home with their kids. They've seen what they're missing or what they need to do and how important that is. And they're not coming back to office work. They want that flexibility to be able to work at home. And interestingly, there are jobs now that are amenable to that. I don't know about you, but not that long ago, many of us were kind of about remote work. If you had somebody that wanted to work remote, it was weird, right? It's like, it's weird, it's uncomfortable, it's difficult. How do you get somebody to work remote? They're not going to come into the office. What are they going to be doing? They're not looking at Facebook all day. They're not going to be in the office. There were a lot of bad feelings about remote work. And then when we were forced to do it, we learned so much in such a short time that, okay, maybe it is possible. As a matter of fact, after a couple of months of shock, we learned ways to become more productive than we were being in the office. And there's study after study after study showing that. You can Google it and check it out. We're actually finding that remote work in many cases is more productive. Now, sure, there are some jobs that we can't work remote. Absolutely. There are some jobs that will not work. But what we found is there's a lot of jobs that will work that we thought would not work, which is pretty shocking. I have a friend, for example, who works in Florida, and they've been in Tallahassee for years and working for a state agency. Well, his partner got a transfer to Utah. So he went in to tell his boss that he and his wife are moving to Utah, and therefore he was resigning. And his boss said, "You're resigning?" "Right, because we're moving to Utah." "Wait, why are you resigning?" "Because we're moving to Utah." His boss said, "You've been working remote for the last 3 months. Your performance is improved over the last 3 months. It's off the charts. Why are you resigning? Just work from Utah." That my friend never even thought that was a possibility. He's working now from Utah in a Florida government agency here in Tallahassee. And every few months he gets a free trip to Tallahassee to visit all his pals and check in at the office. And that kind of scenario is playing out all over the place. Maybe you know some of those. But boy, this is tough because, first of all, we have a mindset about remote. And second, not all jobs are easy. There's a lot of things we have to think about with that. How do you manage a remote workforce? But one more thing you should know. People are 2.5 times more likely right now to apply for a job that is remote. This is a report that 60 Minutes just did, January 22nd. In January 2022, I think it was January 9th, actually, called The Big Quit. Pre-pandemic, 1 in every 67 jobs was remote, and now 1 in 7. Can you even believe that? That kind of makes you want to fall off your chair. It's like, you're kidding me. So if I'm a boss and or a business owner, especially a small business owner, which I am, boy, I really have to think about this, because what's going to happen? How can I operate in this environment? How am I going to change my business? What am I going to do to recruit people? What am I going to do to keep people when now they can go out there on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is hiring someone, someone is being hired on LinkedIn like every 15 minutes right now. LinkedIn is offering all these jobs. It's like one of the greatest places to go to look for a job. People are getting hired for these remote positions all day long. They can go look on LinkedIn, find a remote job, tell you adios, and go home and work. So how are we going to keep people? That's the question. This is from a friend of mine. She's an expert in HR, Lori Kleeman from HR Topics. And when I asked her what she thought about this is what she said, and I thought it was brilliant. So I wanted to share it with you. People aren't quitting and sitting on the couch drinking margaritas. They are going to jobs they like, that are meaningful, make them feel valued, and work with their schedule. People are working, and no one is leaving good organizations, just the crappy ones. The question is, should I stay or should I go? I have to tell you here just something kind of funny, because you know how you talk to your family about what you're doing and everything. And I was telling my husband, that I was doing a session on retention, and I was doing all this research, and I was sharing him some of the stuff that I found that like made me fall off my chair, like the number of remote jobs we have now. And he said, you know what, keeping people is really simple. You just have to keep them happy. And I said, you're right. If people are really happy, if they're passionate, and if they're where they want to be, they're going to stay. It all sounds so easy, right? But there's a lot of factors here. There's a lot of things to consider. Some of them we can control, and some of them we can't. But a lot we can. When people are saying they stay, why do they stay in the jobs they're in? Why do they stay? Here's some of the reasons. They don't want to give up flexible work opportunities. They already like their work schedule. Their work schedule fits. It fits their family. They're happy with that. They don't want to give it up. If they take another job, they might lose that flexibility. So they're going to stay with you because they have the flexibility they need. Now, I've talked about remote a lot, but I just want to emphasize that remote's not for everybody. Not everybody likes remote. What we're kind of hearing is that people kind of like a combination. They like the ability to say, hey, boss, today my baby's not feeling great. I like to work from home. Is that cool? And we're finding that people that are in that situation are really great about saying, hey, boss, I need to work from home, but I can't today because I've got these appointments lined up. So I'll be in, but can I leave it too? And those kind of situations are flexibility too. It's not just remote work. So they have flexible opportunities, and they value that. So they want to stay with you. They feel valued, appreciated, needed. This is a really big factor. I mean, people need to feel like they're valued and they're important, and you need them, and you appreciate what they do. And if they don't feel that at any point, you might as well get ready, because they're looking if they don't feel valued. It's very important. We all have to feel valued. So we have to find ways to do that. And I'll have a few suggestions for you. Opportunities to learn and grow are abundant. Now, this is really important, because this has been like one of the top retention factors for years, many, many years, like at least probably 25 years. This is one of the top things people say is they have to have an opportunity to learn, to grow their skills. They don't want to be bored. They're not challenged. So they need opportunities to learn and grow, and we have to provide that. Good news is there's lots of ways to do that today. Like right now, this whole series that's being offered to you is amazing and free, because Jennifer's worked out a way to pay for this. So there's a lot of ways to give them those opportunities right now, but we need to make sure they know it's available, because it's so important to them. Oh, this is a big one. They really value their connections. When you work in an organization, you have this whole network of connections, and they don't want to lose that. It's kind of like, when a couple gets divorced, there's her friends and his friends, and they don't want to lose, that's awkward. If they leave a job, they lose maybe that network of connections, and it's really important to them, whether it's their coworkers or associations that they're involved with or whatever. Those connections are very important. So that's something to consider. Are you giving them an opportunity to make those connections, to be social, to attend association meetings, to belong maybe to some of the organizations that are related to the work? What are you doing to make sure that they're developing that network that they treasure so deeply that they don't want to leave you, right? Benefits and compensation meets their needs. And this goes back to our session, forever ago, I guess, on motivation. We have needs, and Maslow's hierarchy says, remember good old Maslow from Psych 101, he says the first thing is people have to feel like they have enough money to buy food for their family and provide shelter. That's first. So if the money and the benefits that you're providing are not enough to meet the needs of that person and their family or whatever their situation is, they're going to be looking. And maybe you can't control that, but you just need to know that. Probably my favorite example of that is, I worked for the Department of Children and Families here in Florida for a lot of years. And when I first started off, one of my first supervisor positions, I was in charge of these things called food stamps, which were these little coupons we actually gave people to go buy food. Now it's on a debit card, but that's how we did it back in the day. That's a whole nother story. But many of our employees qualified for those food stamps because they were paid at such a low rate that it didn't meet the needs of their family. Turnover was atrocious, of course, because we weren't meeting their basic needs on salary and benefits. So if you can't meet their needs, and it may not be your fault, maybe their needs are way beyond where they are right now. And, I don't know, but whatever their need is, whatever their perceived need is for income and benefits, if you can't do it, that's a good reason why they may not stay with you. But if their needs are met, then they're happy. And what happens with that is if their needs are met, it becomes a non-factor for them. They don't worry about it. So that's why they stay. Why did they leave? Why did they go? A bad boss. This is time after time, like one of the main factors. And if I can't tell you everything in 1 hour, but a lot of this stuff you can go Google and check out if you're interested, because you can look at this online. Time after time after time, you hear the phrase, people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. If they're not happy with their boss, they're out of here. That makes your life absolutely miserable. And if any of you have ever worked for a bad boss, you know what I'm talking about. It's miserable. Or you could tell them to buy the book, Becoming a Better Boss. Maybe that would help, right? But if you have a bad boss, so if you are a bad boss, you're in deep trouble. That's all I can tell you. Sometimes there are better alternatives. Like, I like it here. This is a good job, but this one is 20 miles closer to my house, right? Or this one can provide flexible hours and you can't, right? So sometimes there's just better alternatives. And again, it's not completely your fault, maybe within your control a little bit, because if they're super happy with you and they're where they want to be, the 20 miles doesn't bother them. But, sometimes you have to think about other factors, even when you are happy. Probably it's happened to a lot of you where you were perfectly happy, but there was just something better that came along that you just couldn't pass up, right? You just couldn't deny. Plan change, sometimes that happens. Somebody who starts a family and has a small child has decided that one of the parents is going to stay home and take care of the child. You can't control everything. So sometimes there's just a plan change. A big one is we've decided to move to a small city close to family to have a simpler lifestyle, right? You can't always control that as well. This one you can. Difficult coworkers. This is another huge one. Bullying, conflict in the workplace. You have that kind of things going on, and it causes such great stress in your work life. Chances are you're going to leave. You can't take that for very long, especially if you have the feeling, perception, or possible realization that nobody's going to do anything about it. You can't fix it. Yeah. So that's a big reason why people leave. They don't feel valued. We said on the other list, if they feel valued, if they don't feel valued, like what I'm doing is important, it has real purpose towards the missions, the organization's mission. And, I really believe in what I'm doing and people appreciate me. They're probably going to go. I mean, it's like, if you've ever had a job where you come in and it's the same thing every day and you sit there and you do this and you walk out and, nobody even notices. Yeah, it's a pretty sinking feeling. That's not a good place to spend such a majority of your life. So they need to feel valued, which means we have to appreciate them and show them that we value them. Lack of clarity, purpose, and expectations. I've talked about that a few times. And sometimes it's just that they don't have an opportunity to use their strengths. Now that's an interesting one. But what we know is that people that have the opportunity to use their strengths in the workplace every day are more engaged, they're happier, more motivated, and likely to perform at amazing levels. Sometimes we find ourselves in jobs that just don't really match our strengths. It's happened to me. It's probably happened to you. It didn't last very long for me because it's not that I couldn't do the work. I just didn't want to. I could do the work, but it wasn't fun for me. It was a struggle. It's like I was worn out and exhausted every day. Whereas if I'm using my strengths and doing work that I really am passionate about, that I really like, whole different story, right? So those are some of the reasons why they go. I thought you'd find this interesting. This is from 2010, okay, just to compare. In 2010, these were the top 5 stay factors when people were asked by Career Systems International, which if you go and research that, there's studies for years on there. These were the top 5 factors in 2010. Number 5 was career growth, learning, and development. See, there's that career growth, learning thing. They want opportunities to learn and grow. Flexible environment, which I bet you is now number 1, right? Being recognized, valued, and respected. Supportive management, great boss. And number 1 is exciting challenge or meaningful work. And you can see it even, this has been going on for years and years, and not much has changed. Maybe the order of these has changed. Maybe flexibility is now number 1, but these 5 are pretty much the top 5. And you notice that salary is not in the top 5 here. Today, we'll see in a year or so when the research comes through, where we are on this. But I think when people are really happy about their jobs, when they feel valued, when they know what they're doing makes a difference, they are in a reasonable pay range, reasonable benefits, and have flexibility to take care of their families, they can overlook a lot. It's not about the cush chair. It's just about feeling valued. So there you go. And this from Beverly K. Employees don't like their bosses, they will leave, even when they're well paid, receive recognition, and have a chance to learn and grow. If they don't like their boss, they're going to go. So it's really important for us as bosses to do the best that we can to provide a really good working environment. You think management doesn't matter? Here's just a little new information to back it up. This is from January 2022 from Wiley. They studied over 5,000 managers from independent contributors like small business owners to CEOs. And this is the results of their survey. 62% of the respondents reported a change in their manager over the past 2 years. 96% of individual contributors surveyed, small business owners, that their manager has an impact on their well-being at work. This is small businesses. 42% stated they have left the job in the past because of their manager. And 98% agreed managers play a critical role in building an engaged and connected organizational culture, right? And this is just January 2022. So the manager, again, continues to play a really essential role in trying to keep people in the jobs they're in. So the manager is important. If that's you, well, if that's you, just know that the influence that you have makes a difference every day for your employees. I don't think most bosses understand how important their role is in the entire success of the organization, because people are looking at you for an example of how they should behave. They're looking at you to see if they're valued, to see if you approve, and to see if you're ethical and how they should act as a result. And a huge role in the whole culture of the organization. So if you're the boss, please take this to heart. People will leave if they have a bad boss. So 3 must-dos. Here you go. Here are 3 things that we can do to help us retain employees. And within these three things, there are several strategies that will come to surface for you here. So here we go, three must-dos. And the first thing is to hire successfully. And it's a process, so I'm going to run through the process, but you have to start up front. Sometimes we hire people who we just need people and we hire them. And it's a big mistake because you end up spending so much time. Have you ever had that happen? I've sure been through that. You spend so much time afterwards trying to fix it because should I fire them? Should I give them more time? I'm a manager I'm working with right now. She hired someone. She was so anxious to get someone in that position because it had been vacant. It was such a vital role. And I think she convinced herself that it would be okay. And now 3 months into it, she's like, I don't want to fire him because I need that position filled so bad, but he's doing this and he's done that. He's destroying this. I mean, it's not a good fit at all. It's terrible. But now she's in a terrible place because she's given him 3 months so far. It's not going to work. There's a lot of damage being done in the workplace by the employees that he's impacting, especially considering that the number one factor in demotivating employees is that the boss doesn't address employees who are not performing up to standard. So there's a lot of damage there. So starting with, that good hire, the right match is really, really important. You want them to stay? Well, let's try to match it up on both sides. Make sure that it's a good match for you and a good match for the employee. The planning is the first thing, and that is before you even advertise the job, you got to figure out, what are you looking for? Just what are you looking for? Who do you want to be in this job? You need to develop like a persona for the job. Like the ideal person for this would be what? What would the characteristics be? What are you looking for? Once you've created that like persona, which you can ask your employees to help, which is cool. You can all do it together. It's kind of fun. You can get Chewbacca kind of vibe going there or whatever. The ideal person is going to be both in a social context and public image, consider public image. Then you do your job description. What are the desired competencies for this position? And when you can figure out the desired competencies, this is where you can account for attitude and personality traits. What set of qualities do you really need? Interestingly, in a 2018 survey, and I want to read this to you because I want to get this right. According to a 2018 Indeed survey, 63% of candidates, 63%, said they chose not to apply for a job because they felt like they didn't know the specific tools or skills listed in the job description. They didn't understand what the job was about. So this upfront planning piece is really important for us so that we understand what we're looking for, and for the candidates so that they can make sure it's a good match for them as well. Then you've got your recruiting process, right? How do you recruit people for these jobs? And the first thing is if you've done your job description and you've done your work on developing your persona, it's going to be a little easier to write those compelling ads and to let people know what you're looking for. So that concise, specific job description, the persona that you have is going to help you a great deal in finding the right person and writing those compelling ads. A few other ideas here. An employee referral program has worked really great for some organizations. And what that consists of is having somebody to, like if an employee refers their friend and their friend gets hired, the employee gets a little bonus or gets some recognition in some way. That's actually been wildly successful. That's something you might want to look at if that interests you. Provide a candidate experience. Put them in a work situation. Like for us, one of the things that we used to hire for that was a really tough job was being at our front desk. Because people would come in, they'd have appointments, we'd be running late. People would be upset because we were running late. It's always a very charged atmosphere, very busy reception area. So we would purposely have our job candidates sit in that reception area and run their interview a little bit late so that they could witness what was going on out there. So in essence, we gave them a bird's eye view of what they were going to be, where they were going to be working. And then we included that as part of the interview, like, we're sorry we kept you waiting, but honestly, that was on purpose. And then we would explain to them what the job is about and how they would be that person behind the counter and see how they felt about it. And honestly, we had people get up and walk out. They didn't even want to talk to us anymore. But you know what? Thank you. Because what if I interview them, go through all that work, like them, and then it doesn't work out, you know? So I appreciated that. That was good. So anything you can do to like let them really kind of see what they're going to be doing so they'll understand it. Think of all the college kids that we have today who don't have any experience before they enter the workforce and then get into the job. You know, a friend of my daughter's, she went to school for 5 years to become a school teacher, you know, did the whole thing, everything she could do so that she could start at the best salary. And her first year of school at Christmas time, I saw her and said, how's it going? How are you liking it? She said, I hate this. I hate this job so much. I've applied for schooling to go into a different career. And she was like at winter break, she hated it. And she really didn't have an opportunity to have that experience, you know, in her education to understand how much she would hate it. She did the student teaching. That's different from being in there every day with the kids and the parents. She said the parents were the problem. You know, that was the big thing for her. And how could she know that? So anything you can do to help them, you know, understand what they're getting into. Social media, of course, you know, use social media. LinkedIn right now says that, oh, I said a while ago, they're hiring off of LinkedIn every 15 minutes. That's wrong. One person hired every 15 seconds on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a huge source. Also, Indeed. Indeed is king, INDEED. That's king. There's no better value to reach the candidate pool today. If you check that out, you can actually check resumes to look for a good fit, and you can set up alerts. Like if somebody puts a resume on that would fit what you're looking for, you'll get an alert that somebody has gone on Indeed that looks like they'd be a good fit for you. So check out Indeed.com. It's amazing. And plan for those video interviews. And the reason that I suggest, you know, planning for your video interviews is because of this step, which is screening. Screening is really important, and it's great if you can possibly do your screening on video. Do it virtual. It'll save you a lot of time, and it'll also give you a really good inside glimpse to the candidate. Like when you send them the link, can they find it? Do they know how to get around on the system? Have they ever done a Zoom call before? And part of this will depend on whether you need them to. You know, if it's a skill that you need them to have, it'd be a great idea to do a screening interview on whatever platform you think you might be using. So screening, just a few things to check for is, first of all, do they meet the minimum qualifications of the job? You know, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but if you've ever done a job interview and then found out that they don't qualify, man, that hurts. You like them and they don't qualify, they don't meet the educational requirement or whatever you've put in your job description. So before you bring them in for the interview and spend all that time, make sure they meet those minimum qualifications. The matrix, and you're doing a job matrix. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, some kind of a matrix. The matrix for me looks like a list of the knowledge, skills, and abilities that I've developed for my position description. And I just kind of make myself a grid with the KSAs, and I rank them right on that grid. So I worked in government, right? So we had to be really picky about this stuff. So that if the matrix was looking like just from a preliminary screen of their resume or application, it's looking pretty good, and I want to talk to them. But sometimes you go, just based on this document alone, I can tell this is not a good fit. So great, you don't have to waste your time with interviewing. The career goals appear to match. And are they available for the pre-screen interview? So do your screening up front as you get those applications and save yourself a lot of time, and also maybe save yourself from making a really bad decision. Then it's coming time to select, to interview and analyze everything you've done to make that decision. So the good news is if you've been following the process all the way through, the decision shouldn't be nearly as hard for you as it may have once been, because you've taken time up front to figure out exactly what you're looking for, to create that persona, to get the KSAs together and the knowledge, skills, and abilities together, to be sure of what you have. So you have something really solid to work with. You go back to that job description, you think about what KSA, what knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience that they have. Try to use your behavioral interviewing, where you ask them for an example of when they did this, not just can you do this, those kind of things. Like I said, I can't tell you everything in an hour, but I'm trying. So review your notes, check your scoring grids, check the references, and make the best decision that you can at that time. So that hiring is so critically important, that whole process. Again, we're trying to get the right person in the right job from the beginning so that we don't spend time on the back end trying to clean that up. And then, of course, there's the onboarding. This is so important. You know, bringing them on board the very first day, making them feel welcome. Actually, if you're doing any remote work, we can start that a lot earlier now. You can start that as soon as you've offered them the job. You can have people do video introductions with them before they even step foot in the office. Imagine that. That'd be kind of cool. Like my very first day of the job, I've already met most of my teammates. I've met people because I had a 5-minute discussion with them on Zoom, 5-minute meeting or something like that. So there's a lot you can do. This is a strategy that you need to really talk over and think about and make sure that you have a process in place. You know, a big difference from walking in your first day, having somebody hand you a policy manual and say, that's your desk. Just go in and read some of this policy for a while. We'll be with you. And walking in to somebody who says, hey, this is your office. Everybody's, hi, welcome, we're happy you're here. And you sit down and they already have your business cards and they already have you on the phone list and you already have internet access set up and access to their web portal and everything. Huge difference, you know. Remember, they need to feel valued. So you really need to make your onboarding a process, you know, make sure that you have almost a checklist. Well, yeah, a checklist is a really good idea. A checklist, you know, announce to people that they're coming, keep in touch prior to the first day, team building, intros, have a specific plan, especially for the first week. Tell them stories about the organization so that they'll begin to understand the culture and have your team members share this too, you know. Have a checklist, make sure that you're taking care of them when they come on board. I think onboarding is probably the most important part of getting this. I love this job and I'm passionate about this. I'm in the right place. This is great. But if they come in and don't feel immediately valued, like they're welcome, that's going to be a strike against you from the beginning. So this is a really important process. So you're hiring, planning, recruiting, screening, interviewing, selecting, onboarding. So important to make sure that you start with there. And then the second big thing is motivation, motivating and engaging people. And this is important. I know, you know, I've talked about motivation in the series probably at different places because it's always just, it's a huge deal. How do you motivate people? You know, how do you motivate? Here's what we know. Everybody has needs. And in order to fulfill those needs, they behave in a certain way. And they behave in that way until they're satisfied that their need is met. And then they go back and go on, starting on a new need. But if they're trying to behave in a way such that their need is being met and then they never get the satisfaction, they're gone. That's it. They disengage, they come over to work only to get a paycheck, or they leave the organization completely. You don't get the best out of them. So the question is then, you know, what's the secret really to motivating others? That's what we all want to know, right? What is that secret to motivating others? Well, here's the secret, just for you. The secret is you can't really motivate anyone because it's need-based. It has to come from within, right? You can't really do it. This is from Stephen Covey. Motivation is a fire from within. If someone else tries to light that fire under you, chances are it will burn, but very briefly. Motivation is a matter of personal need. In order to motivate, you have to know what the employee needs And then you have to do the best that you can to create an environment so that those needs can be met. You have to create a motivation possible environment. So what you do here is, first of all, you ask, Jennifer, what do you need to be happy in this job? Hypothetical, but, just asking somebody like, what's going on with you? How's everything? How are the kids? Are you able to juggle the job? Is everything okay? What do you need? Assess them. The DISC assessment, the Myers-Briggs that Jennifer was talking about before the session started, do an assessment so that you'll know what their strengths are. Remember, we said it's so important that they're using their strengths every day. Well, you need to know what those strengths are, or you can make sure they're meeting them every day. So do some kind of an assessment, consider that. And probably the big thing is just paying attention, paying attention so that you get to know them better, that you see when something's not right, when somebody who was really engaged all of a sudden isn't, or someone that was really happy is no longer happy, or someone that's just disengaged, you can see that something's wrong. It's a delicate balance in the workplace, personal need versus, work needs. You can't have one without the other. If they have something going on, you need to check in with them. Thank goodness that many of us now have, employee programs that provide support to our employees. That's really important if you have that. But either way, just an acknowledgement that I understand that something's up and what can I do is really important. That's a motivation possible environment. Give me a way so that I can meet my needs in this workplace. I need to be home with my kids because they're sick. Make it possible for me. That's a motivation possible environment. I need to be able to do what I love doing best. Make that possible for me. That's a motivation possible environment, and so on. I need training. I need challenge. Do that for me. Make it possible. When employees are engaged, the needs have a chance. And that's what motivation is really all about, is trying to meet those needs. So, best practices. I did a hard look at best practices because I wanted to know whether the things that I've been telling you in this hour are what other people think. And I found this very interesting list from SHRM. Anybody know what SHRM is? It's the Society for HR Management, for Human Resource Management. Very well respected. You can go to their website. There's a ton of resources on there. But they actually had a list on there of best practices for retaining employees. Check it out. So the first thing they say is good recruitment. We talked about that. Good recruitment. Realistic job preview during recruitment. Strategic onboarding and assimilation. Shared learning activities to meet others and to get to know them. Mentoring. Socialization, training, compensation. See, I think I've talked about all these things. They say pay levels are modest predictors of the decision to leave, but taking the problem off the table is essential, which means we're meeting their needs on pay and compensation. One study by SHRM found that highly engaged employees are 5 times less likely to quit. Let's see, yeah. So this is their list. So I thought this was interesting because it really supports everything that I've been saying and believe to be true about how to retain your employees. So good list. So the question is, what changes will you make? Because, if you change nothing, nothing will change. I know that probably some of the things that I've talked about are a little uncomfortable for you because it's hard for us to imagine how it could be possible for us to give raises to everybody at 5.7%. And not saying you need to, but I'm just saying that, you go through that thought process when somebody says something like that. How is it possible for us to make our jobs remote? Like, what does that even look like for us? How can I do some of these things that they're suggesting that I do? Even training and development for a small business is difficult. Like, can I afford it? Like, how do I bring somebody in, and what kind of training do I do? And rewards, like what does that look like? Do we have budget for bonuses? I mean, can we even do that? I don't know. And Fred over here, I know he's a bad boss, but he's been with us for 22 years. And like, I can't get rid of Fred, but yeah, the fact that he's a bad boss is probably impacting others. I I get that. I mean, I know there's a lot of things to think about here. Like, whoa, what can I do? What changes can I possibly make? But it's something we have to think of. If we want to keep our employees, if we're serious about retention, we're going to have to give this some serious thought. So if we were in person right now, which we're not, I would ask you, so what ideas do you have? And because we're not in person, I'm just I've made a whole list of ideas that I had, so I'll run through them. And if you have any others and you want to throw them on chat, that's cool. But I'm thinking, maybe we could shorten the work week. Oh gosh, I know that sounds crazy, but I have a friend in Fort Myers, Florida, who works for a healthcare system. And she has a small child who just turned 2, and she is a physical therapist. They just offered her a shortened work week. She's working 36 hours a week instead of 40, and she's working 4 9-hour days. And she loves it because that gives her an extra day every week home with her 2-year-old, right? So, okay, are they losing that much by the fact that she's working 4 hours less? Probably not. Actually, I think they have a lot to benefit from that. So there's an idea. Maybe allowing them to work from home sometimes, but not all the time. Maybe remote isn't like 5 days a week, but maybe it's 1 day a week. I don't know. That's maybe you could swing something like that, just some kind of a little adjustment. Oh, get this, Home Depot. This was interesting. They're offering speedy job offers. So what they're telling people is that when they apply for a job, they could receive their offer within 1 day of applying. How about that? They say that the accelerated hiring process is part of its plan to hire more than 100,000 new associates ahead of its busy spring season. That was released February 1, and they have a whole bunch on the web about that if you want to read about it. It's called their speedy job offers. How about exit interviews, or better yet, how about stay interviews? A lot of us do exit interviews, like, why are you leaving? But what if we did some interviews that asked, why are you staying? So that we understand what their needs are and make sure that we're providing things before they walk away. Cincinnati Children's Hospital has a terrific model for this, and you can read about that online as well. What they're doing is actually doing these stay interviews, and they have really increased retention with this. So Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Have you heard of Zappos? They do shoes, right? So let's see, they are nominating coworkers. Any coworker can nominate any other coworker for any reason in the world to show appreciation to them, and Zappos will give that person that was nominated a $50 bonus that month. Okay. And they can control it. So what if they do that for 6 employees and they give $300 a month? But do you know what that's doing for morale and retention? Like, crazy, cool, incredible. Take a look at your own benefits and your salary structure. Is it competitive? Is this something that people will be proud of? But remember that it's not just salary. It's not just benefits. It's the whole package. You can't just say, oh, we pay more than anybody else, therefore people will stay here. That won't work forever. It may work short term, but it won't work forever. Probably the best idea is just to focus on your people and make sure that you're creating that motivation possible environment, a place where they're just really happy to be. Watch for those signs of trouble. Let me pause here before I close and see what questions we have. Oh my gosh, we only have 2 minutes left. I better share this last slide, and then we can let people hang on who want to talk it over, Jen. That's okay with you. There is an article in Harvard Business Review I want to tell you about, HBR. It's called 13 Signs That Someone is About to Quit. It's by Tim Gardner and Peter Hom. I didn't list all 13 because, goodness gracious, it was a lot of words for a slide, but it's very interesting. 13 signs that someone is about to quit. These are the top 5. So that might be something you want to take a look at. Their work productivity has decreased. They're acting less like a team player. All of these are not surprising. So there are some signs that you can look at if you would be interested in looking at that. The truth is that in the end, it really is all about your people. I mean, if they're really happy, and engaged and motivated, they're going to want to stay with you, and they're going to do everything they can to make that happen. Okay, Jennifer, let me turn